let's talk about private prisons. We talk often about how private prisons are a problem, but at the same time, they represent a pretty small portion of total prisons. I think something only like 8 to 10% of the national prison population is in a private prison. However, we figured out one area where we really have a problem with private prisons. On any given day, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, keeps at least 34,000 immigrants locked up while they wait for their cases to be heard in immigration court. Many of these detainees are incarcerated not because they're dangerous, not because they're likely to skip their court dates, but because Congress has set an arbitrary quota that must be met by ICE. And this is written directly into federal law. 34,000 detention beds must be maintained. And this is exactly the type of issue that we should be critical of both Congress and the private prison industry for. The way private prisons often work is they agree to take a prison population. They agree to replace sometimes a public prison, but often they have these minimum occupancy requirements or guarantees that are built into their contract where the government says, you can run this prison and we will guarantee to keep it 98% full at all times. Or if we don't, we still have to pay you as if it were 98% full. And the detention of immigrants is becoming a very, very popular way, Lewis, to keep these numbers up, the occupancy numbers, by detaining these immigrants for significant periods of time. Often these are individuals who don't end up being charged with any crimes and are eventually released. These are not all people who are going to be deported. And it is absolute prison industrial complex corruption. This is a specific area where the private prison industry is to blame because more than half of these mandatory beds are in private prisons. So private prisons, small percentage of the total prison population, represent half of these mandatory immigrant detentions.
And I mean, can we really blame those private companies, or do we blame the politicians for letting those private companies and lobbyists coerce them into insane legislation like this with quotas and mandatory, a mandatory number of people that you should have incarcerated, and that we're paying that? I understand from a state's point of view that times are tough. You needed to free up some funds, and that maybe this was a way out of some of that. But we went about it in the completely wrong way.
There are serious questions about the legality of a congressional mandate that requires the detention of a certain number of people, period, separate from, well, how many people have actually been suspected of breaking laws that would get them incarcerated. That's not part of the mandate. The mandate is just, you must maintain this quota. The incarceration problem in this country is so serious that we are essentially in a neck-and-neck battle with North Korea for the country that incarcerates most people per capita. It's pathetically embarrassing.
It is pretty embarrassing. Hopefully, with the legalization of marijuana countrywide, we can reduce our numbers a little bit.
Next, I will speak to a woman who claims to be the former lover of Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin of former President John F. Kennedy. This is going to be interesting. Stay with us.